So welcome, and welcome to the launch of Last of the Line by Susan Jordan. It's absolutely marvellous to see so many people here. Over 40 people have arrived so far. I know we've got a few more registered, so they'll be joining us no doubt at some point. So we are here to celebrate Last of the Line. It's the Three Trees Portfolio Award winning pamphlet for 2021. So a big round of applause, please, for Susan, who won out of a number of entrants for this year. It's the inaugural Three Trees Portfolio Award, which Maytree have run. And for a small press, it's always a little bit of a worry stroke challenge launching an award, because obviously you want to do your best for the winner, and you need people to enter. And we did get people entering from all over the world, from across the country, the quality of which was absolutely wonderful. And I don't know whether there's anybody here who did enter, but thank you if you did. It certainly helps Maytree go on into the future as well as publishing wonderful books, as you're going to hear tonight. What's really important about the Three Trees editions is that they come with we try to get the poetry out there. So if there's any readers groups, any sort of charitable organisations that would like offers of the books, please get in touch with Maytree. I know we've spoken with Susan about this as well, and that's part of the Three Trees sort of philosophy, is to try to get the books out there. So as well as the award for the author, it's about celebrating that, celebrating the work, and celebrating poetry. And I'll mention a little bit about next year's prize, because it does change a little bit, but we'll be opening that in early spring next year, so I'll mention that later on. So without further ado, we're here to celebrate the launch. We've got a plethora of wonderful guest readers as well joining Susan, so thank you to everybody who's turned up, and we'll be giving short introductions. So I'll without further ado, I'll hand you over to Susan. So if you'd like to unmute yourself, Susan, and over to yourself.
Yes, it it would be a good idea to unmute myself. Yes, so welcome everyone. It's lovely to see so many people. I mean, people who I know very well and have known for a long time, and people who I have never met and don't know at all. I'm very grateful to David for organising the launch, and also, of course, for choosing my pamphlet for the award. And I'm also very grateful indeed to the excellent guest readers whose poems I'm sure you will enjoy hearing. So first of all, I'm going to read the first three poems from the pamphlet, and they're called Immigrants, Elijah's Cup, and the title poem, Last of the Line. Immigrants is about my maternal grandparents who came to England from Odessa, then in Russia, and Płock in Poland, sometime around the turn of the 20th century. It's their picture on the cover that you've just seen. In Odessa, where my grandfather came from, there was a major pogrom in 1905. It was never mentioned at all in the stories I heard about my mother's family, and whether they just didn't speak of it, or whether he arrived in England before it began, I really don't know. I haven't been able to trace his arrival. Just to say, there are some Yiddish words in the poem. The Heim is the home country they came from, and landslide are the people who came from the same area. Latkes are small pancakes, which are usually made from potatoes or matzah meal. Immigrants. They hadn't thought when they left the Heim how grey London would look to them, how the East End would crowd in, how when they landed at the unfriendly dock, no one would bother to spell their names right, and people would laugh at their Yiddish accents. Etty, dragging samovar and featherbed off the boat, was met by brothers and sisters who took her in. Ilya, now Elias, was greeted by Sister Tanya. The families knew each other through Landslide, people from Płotsk or Odessa making a party. Once Ilya met Etty, his South Africa was a vanished dream. Instead, a shop in Whitechapel. Tilly, first of three, remembered glass dishes of sweets. After sweets, hosiery in Berwick Street. Diaghilev bought socks for his dancing boys. He smelt of lemon hair oil, Tilly said. At weekends, always more parties. Etty, plump as a sofa, cooked plates of latkes, never complained about all the work. Ilya, ginger-haired, quick-tempered, sat at cards or chess with the men. Benno Moisevich sometimes played the piano. The Depression uprooted them again. A tall house in Hackney, darkened by trees. Trains chuntering past the garden. Etty and Ilya were gone long before police barriers, drug dealers on the doorstep. They only knew it as their home. And although this isn't in the poem, one of my mother's sisters actually lived in the house right from the time when the family moved there, which was in 1936, until she died in 2011. So that was 75 years she lived there. Elijah's Cup is about the Seder, the ritual Passover meal, and it's also about my grandfather. There are a few Hebrew and Yiddish words in it. The Haggadah is the Passover service book. The kashas are the ritual questions about the origin of Passover. The charoset is the sweet paste representing the mortar the Israelites used with the bricks they made. And the afikomen is the portion of matzah that was eaten at the end of the meal. Elijah's Cup. On the Seder table, beside the bitter herbs, the dish of matzahs folded in white cloth, the charoset fragrant with cinnamon and nuts, the roasted egg and charred lamb bone, stood Elijah's Cup, our largest wine glass, filled with sweet kosher wine for the invisible guest, the prophet Elijah, who never came. Each year, the youngest person asked the kashas, first me, then when he was bigger, my brother. Why is this night different from all other nights? Our tongues tripping over unfamiliar Hebrew. We sipped Passover wine from a medicine glass, the rich, deep red burning in our chests. Horseradish dipped in brine prickled our noses. Pulled from the folded cloth, the matzahs were broken, one hidden for the afikomen, which we had to find. We worked our dutiful way through the Haggadah. What did leiv mean? Why did we lean to the left? My mother served the gefilte fish, the pale ovals, each with a slice of carrot, the golden fried ones that I liked. We never sang the songs after the meal. On the sideboard, a sepia photograph. Ilya, English to Elias, looked out at us, moustached, solemn, eyes twinkling. My mother's daddy, Oliver Sholem, peace be on him. She always lit a memorial light on the anniversary of his death. My brother took after him, she said, red-headed, fierce, a candle burning with his spirit. We didn't know Ilya was the same as Elijah, but we knew he was at our table. The third poem I'm going to read now is Last of the Line, which refers to the fact that although I'm not a practicing Jew, in traditional terms, I am still Jewish because my mother was Jewish. Lubavitchers, a member of the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic movement. The menorah is the 7-branch Hanukkah candlestick. Do you have a Jewish mother? Two young Lubavitchers in Golders Green are keen to foist on me one of their mini menorah kits, so I'll celebrate Hanukkah. Behind us in the dusk, a row of men in black hats are lifted up on a cherry picker to light, that is switch on, the biggest menorah in London. I had a Jewish mother. I'm not one. My niece's Jewish father, on his own, isn't enough to carry the line. She's never observed Hanukkah or Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, knows hardly any of the Yiddish words whose taste still lingers in my mouth. Thank you. And David is now going to introduce the first guest readers.
Thank you, Susan. So, as we work through the evening, as Susan said, we've got a number of guest poets, and unfortunately, you've obviously sussed the master plan. I'm now going to have to refer to my notes. Now you've all worked out how to change your names, and we have to call everybody by their own name rather than a collection of Susans. So anyway, without further ado, I'm really delighted to welcome Rachel Klein first up. So Rachel from Glastonbury, published in journals and anthologies, and is a frequent reader at poetry events. Her collection Singing in the Bone Tree by Indigo Dreams concerns our relationship with nature. Her pamphlet Girl Golem by Forward explores her Jewish migrant heritage and sense of otherness. She's currently expanding this into a collection with work about her LGBTQ plus identity. So please welcome Rachel.
Hi, thank you so much, Susan, for including me in your evening. I feel it is like Daheim. I'm just going to read two poems, David. And the first one, well, it's about a very specific Jewish tradition. And the only word I will allude to is the word moil. And all I'm going to say is that it's a job description. Tradition. The moil wraps the tiny penis, gives a finger of wine for the baby to suck. A dentist by trade, this is his special calling, removing foreskins with a V-shaped blade, satisfying God's need for all those bits of skin. With new grandchild on his knee, father turns ashen. The women stand behind a curtain or in the kitchen, wait to catch falling men. One by one, they sit head between legs and are offered sweet tea. And my last poem is called Duolinguo, spelt J-E-W, a linguo. Code Switching for Jews, 1970s edition. This is a more recent poem. Lesson 1, at home. Emphasize emotions with vivid gestures. Always answer a question with a question. Angst is compulsory, as is kvetch and guilt. Joke in the old tongue, smack rips around the words schlepp, schmendrick, lobbers, schlemozzle. Lesson 2, at mealtime. It is usual to talk over each other with your mouth full. Expect more than you can eat. Learn to tolerate cold, chopped and boiled gefilte fish. It's tradition. Apply copious quantities of chrein to hide the taste. Guffaw at anecdotes about Uncle Schleumer. Compare Mother Strudel with Mrs. Lippmann's, and when guests are present, grill them with personal questions. Lesson 3, away from home. Avoid complaining, avoid loud colours and remarks, avoid personal feelings, avoid acting like a Nebuchadnezzar victim, avoid acting like a banker's wallet or a vegan lefty. Yes, both! You think I invent these meshuggah slurs? Lesson 4, in social situations. When refused membership to local societies like the golf club, apologise. When they call you Jew girl or ask what you do for Christmas, smile. Choose only words that are formica smooth. Always reply, fine, thank you. Never make a drama out of a trifle. Never dominate the conversation. Try not to interrupt. Try harder. Beware, those colour-coded smiles conceal teeth. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Wonderful. And without further ado, next up we have Jenny Osborne. Jenny lives in South Devon. She is one of the organisers of Poetry Teignmouth and the Teignmouth Poetry Festival. Gives workshops and readings around the Southwest and runs a regular poetry playtime group in Teignmouth. Over to yourself, Jenny.
Thank you, thank you. My two poems are about my brother, who was quite a mysterious figure in my life. The first one I've called Reconstructing a Brother, because it was about my process of trying to piece his life together. It's not easy to piece him together, to fill in the gaps with my own stories, or stories you and you and you have made up. I can see patches, stitches, holes filled with shadow where the stuffing has been ripped out. Vein pulsing on his forehead, beard grey, untrimmed. I put words in his mouth, those I think I remember, those he committed to tape. They spurt out, slur onto the carpet. I dress him in a rugby shirt. Can't remember. Did he wear jeans? At times, he is in two places at once, where he said he was and where he said he was. The props are easy. Fencing mask, pint of beer, succession of long dead dogs jostling at his heels. Even as I work, pick up a piece I've rummaged out, a photograph perhaps, try to make it fit. Another is dropping off. He won't look me in the eyes. I can't remember if he ever did. And I've been looking at various ways of describing his life. And this one is your life in stuff, his belongings. After the cycle and the motorbike, a bright red Morgan Sports that ended its days in a yard behind a garage. Then the fencing mask and foil. Those outlived you, or their successors did. Fine-haired brushes, watercolor paints for Chinese landscapes in wistful shades. I still have one. It lives in a box with other paintings for which I have no wall. The Monet print I gave you for Christmas, a French cafe hung over your mantelpiece. Box sets of opera cassettes, Verdi, Puccini, alongside Max Boyce and Treorchy male voice choir. A mirror advertising Guinness. Dog leads came and went. Cars left your life abruptly, although I didn't know why until later. The tankard, pewter, curved and convivial, might have been your last companion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. That's wonderful. And thanks to everyone who's taken time to put some messages in the chat. I'll keep up with them this time. We're constantly learning on Zoom, and these things pass us by. So just to keep up to date with them. So from Victoria regarding Sue's earlier reading, that was wonderful. I could listen to you reading every single poem. Rachel, what a fantastic reading, wonderful, witty and well delivered as always, and brilliant. We like that. And James, to yourself, Jenny, sinister, very strong poem about your brother, Jenny. I think we can agree about that, and very effective sense of vivid active absence. So thank you. There's messages coming in, and I'll try and pass those on because I appreciate that not everybody can see those. So next up, we have Jean Grimsey. Another one from Teignmouth. We've got the Teignmouth Massive in tonight, I think. Came late to the poetry world and is planning to publish her first collection in 2022. She's been published in Acumen and in Poetry Teignmouth's annual anthologies, Pizzazz, as well as being part of a recent anthology on addiction, Despite Knowing. She often reads at poetry events, both locally and online. So welcome, Jean.
Thank you, David. I've got 2 poems to read about my parents. I lost both of them. They both died about 10 years ago. And these are both in slightly in aftermath of their deaths. And right. The first one about my mother. Parting gifts. My mother was not the best of gift givers, preferring to be generous with cash she'd saved from the housekeeping, handed over with the proviso it should be spent on necessities rather than desires. Only in death did she leave to me 2 perfect gifts, found as we cleared the house. First, a thick black woolen jacket she'd worn for walking on the beach. Though it puzzled me how such a garment could be worn by my very little mother and by me. Little is not an attribute I claim. I found the second item well hidden, a tiny box cradling a diamond ring, 9 stones set in a saucer of gold. In value, it equaled my mother's Triumph Herald. So I had the ring, my brother had the car. It judded to a halt 2 months later. As to wear the ring. And the other one, matching pair, for my very beloved father. My father's green tie went with everything he wore, everything except his dark suit, which demanded a muted silk. But with his check shirt, beige and battered cardigan and matching trousers, the green tie was right. It wasn't just any green tie. It said, I was a rugby player. It said, Glamorgan Wanderers. It said, I could have played for Wales. It said, I went on playing until my knees went. It said, I always ran with the ball. I rolled that green tie up, asked the undertaker to tuck it into his coffin. and on his memorial stone is written, he always ran with the ball. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And just carrying on from the messaging. So what a good beginning to Last of the Line, Susan from Sue Prophet. And regarding Jenny's reading, comment from our next reader, Ian Royce Chamberlain. Excellent, Jenny, you haven't forgotten how. So mentioning Ian, we've got Ian next. So Ian's latest poetry publication in 2020 was an illustrated pamphlet from Mudlark Press, and Not Forgotten, Neat Vergessen. I might have got that wrong, but I'm sure Ian will correct me shortly. His work has appeared in many poetry periodicals and anthologies, in addition to 2 full collections, Stumble into Grace, published by Wild, and Vertigo and Beeswax by Oversteps. Ian is a long-time member of Moor Poets and proud to be part of the vibrant Southwest poetry scene. In 2014, he co-founded the much-acclaimed Teignmouth Poetry Festival, which is open to make a comeback next year, which I'm sure we're all wishing that to happen. The fundraising Teignmouth Poetry Competition is now open for entries, and the link, if you like, is on the Facebook event page where we've posted that. So welcome to Ian.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Susan, for this invitation. Absolutely wonderful. What poets especially like is to be asked to read a particular poem. It says, you've written something memorable. So thank you, Susan, for asking for this one, which I've not read in years, about my dad and the photo of him on my bedroom windowsill. This is Boy in a Sailor Suit. A handsome child, bright, with an impish liveliness. They'd brushed his hair, told him to sit still for once, but in the rush for town, forgot to check his fingernails. One hand, the left, in perfect focus. It knew nothing then but knotting laces, climbing trees, how to trawl for sticklebacks, and all the field edge grubbiness of being boy. But 10 years on, those fingers packed 100-weight of kit bag, snaked a tin can boat along the banks of Irrawaddy, slashed at jungle, fed a Bren gun, fired oil and rubber for a smokescreen, swung the bow and ploughed stinking water at full throttle. And those fingers in the lull between, when all they had to kill was time, cracked eggs to fry on a steel plate deck, slit envelopes from home and wrote replies in sweat and pencil, kept them safe for when it was over. Then those fingers turned the pages of a bedtime story, taught a boy to tie his laces and a way to hold a cricket bat, how to thin out seedlings, slice up kindling, clamp a chicken's wings for clipping. Those same fingers which had stilled for a second, spate of Kettering, photographer, underneath his hood and readying the shutter for a sailor suit, an impish face, the perfect field edge grubbiness of hand and fingers which by 1933 had killed only sticklebacks, and those by accident. Jean, I love the poem about your mother. I think we possibly had the same mother, especially in regard to presents. This is for my mum, who was a well-padded Christian lady with a capital L. Resurrection. She never owned it, never even saw it, but My mother and this chair were made for each other. Broad-shouldered, heavily upholstered, shiny in an artificial fabric with its faux paisley swirls. Colour-wise, as loud as any chair could be. And there it sits, 4 square in my conservatory, feet solid on the ground. Not a chair that hugs. There's none of that envelopment, no coziness, but a distance kept, like a quietly influential guru. Not my choice, of course, was around for years before I came along. And the kind of comfort it bestows could be compared, perhaps, with her belief, quite absolute, in an afterlife. Thank you.
Wonderful. And just going back to the chat from Kathleen, such a lovely mix of poetry, and I think we can all agree with that. And we hope everyone is enjoying it. And sorry for the late person who we've just let in. I understand you had some problems getting in, but you're all here now, and I think we're up to about 46, so that's wonderful for a cold, wet December evening. So wonderful to see you all. So back to the main event. We're going to return to Susan, where she's going to read some more from Last of the Line. Thank you. You'll need to unmute, Susan.
Right, that helps. I was just going to say it was lovely to hear all those poems, some of which I'd requested, but some of which I didn't know. And Rachel may have seen me falling about laughing at the first part of her poem about being Jewish, although the second part was much more serious. So I'm going to read several poems now from Last of the Line. The first 4 are called Grown Up, Knuckers, Glasses and Stained, and they're all about my brothers and my relationship to the adults and the things they valued. Grown Up is about being drawn into the grown-up's resigned view of life. Just to say, I have been to Samarkand, but I haven't been to Tokyo. Grown Up. On Sunday afternoons, the grown-ups looked sad, sitting in their armchairs, drinking tea and smoking Craven A. The ashtrays filled with burnt-out talk of illnesses and deaths and all the things they didn't want to do. Their moaning turned life grey, even when they scattered lovely over the flower beds. None of that was going to happen to me. I'd be happy, famous. I'd write books. I'd travel to Tokyo in Samarkand. Then they called me over to their side. Sensible, realistic were the words that took me over, pushing out of sight the rebel poet who secretly survived, who kept alive on sea and wooded hills and threw off her grown-up overcoat. Nachas, which means pride and joy, especially in one's offspring, is about being on the receiving end of praise and blame. Cnena Hora means literally no evil eye, and is said superstitiously when talking about anything good in one's life. Nachas. Cnena Hora, she's doing so well. Oh, he's a lovely kid. They always talked about us as though we weren't there, as though our height, the colour of our hair, were theirs more than our own. Our little accomplishments made the world better for them. I didn't know what Nachas was, but grew tall in its heat, glowing and squirming as they poured it over me, tasting its rich flavour. Dad didn't praise. His words made us smaller than we were. But Mum and Auntie Tilly spooned it out thick as jam, till sooner or later we'd slip over in it, get our faces dirty, smear it on the furniture. No longer the lovely kids their Nachas has made us. Sometimes we'd slip away to hide in our rooms from the light they shone on us. At 11, I'd known for a while that grown-ups lied, sometimes for reasons I didn't understand. Glasses is about catching them out. It came to shore in small jolts, spat out from the sea's mouth, its once clear green obscured by a cataract of salt. It might have been a bottle glass lens for a little girl's national health glasses. It wouldn't have fitted in Dad's shop among the neat rows in wooden trays. His clumsy fingers couldn't have slotted it into the thin metal half frame, turning and waving it like a magician. Better like this or like this? He tested our eyes, went to the cubbyhole to write our notes, name and birth date on each buff envelope in his angular script, left them on the table. I had to look. Born 1912, Mum's envelope said. 49, going to die much sooner than we'd believed. She told us 36. And Dad, 1906, even older than Mum. I watched him in the mirror as he tried new frames on her, snatching them off the way he did. Was it true? Perhaps I shouldn't ask. Mum looked away, looked back, sort of muttered, yes. I thought it must be shameful to be so old. Dad fussed with the frames. They saw the lenses they'd given us no longer fitted our eyes. In Stained, clumsy child meets wrathful mother. Cerise, eau de Nil, turquoise, puce, names it was hard to put a colour to. Grown-ups' expensive words for clothes. Only rust spoke to my eyes each day. The old carpet we'd brought from our flat to make do in my bedroom. Worn to a skeleton, the seams and joins were more like sacking, bumpy on bare feet. Not till the dreadful day when brown paint spread across it, an invading continent that marked its territory indelibly and turned Mum into a lava flow of outrage and accusation. Why didn't you put newspaper down first? Did I realize rust had such a high price? The last two poems I'm going to read before the interval are about my mother. The biggest meal. Mum, you shouldn't be standing in the kitchen trying to make soup you think I'd like, saying, is it all right, dear? Looking at me as though your life depended on it. I can't give you life. Even when you were alive, I kept killing you with silence. Stop tugging me by the heart. I don't want to grieve for you. I never could. I don't know how to manage it. This is the biggest meal you've cooked for me, more than I could eat if I sat down to it day after day. And it's you. I pushed you away and you keep coming back, offering me more, nudging my elbow so I'll notice you and tell you at last how much I loved you. Love you, I want to say, but don't know how. You'll have to stop helping me or I'll never find out. The last piece in this half is a prose poem. It's called First Love. I wrote it 30 years ago, not long before my mother died, though I didn't know then she would die so soon after. First love. In the beginning, you were the waters I swam in, the tree that gave me life. As I grew, I learned your body through its blood. You were sound and silence, light and dark, and your discomfort banished the sun. Our hearts spoke to each other in language without words. We knew one another through embraces without touch. You were the bounds of my protection, the container of my limitless light, the form inside which I had no need to be I. You were not. There was only the universe and the completion of love. After the separation, I learned your outside through its feels and smells. Our eyes met or did not. Words intervened to keep us apart. Food came between us, the medium of love. As I outgrew milk, your chicken soup, sweet and thin and golden, became the amniotic fluid in which our love could grow. But I consumed it without consuming you and left you lonely. I remember the thickness of your body, the hair on your legs, the size of your breasts, and their dark nipples, which disgusted me at my own womanhood. I remember you washing your armpits and using mum. I remember being ashamed of your clothes when you came to the school. Ashamed because you were so ordinary. Ashamed of your poor old feet. I remember jumping on your best hat till you cried, and the sting when you once slapped my face. I remember us eating oranges and laughing till we wept, and sitting on the beach smiling in the hot sand. In the kitchen, I remember the warm bodyish smell of chopped liver and the chicken's feet, the fiesler, in the soup. I remember your Yiddish words when I was good or bad. Suzela, bubbela, you schloch, you schlemiel. A long time ago, I thought you were beautiful. Slowly I grew away, and when the break came, I no longer knew I loved you. Seeing you now, your hands too big for your slack-skinned arms, your mouth lined where your false teeth don't fit, your brittle grey hair, and a pinny over your nice dress. I no longer recognize you from the picture of you that looks like me. Already I imagine how it will be when you are not there. The pain of losing you and the freedom from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Wonderful. Just to pick up on some of the comments, Veronica, so intimate, wonderful. You're bringing the complexity of these relationships so powerfully to life, Susan, from Sue Prophet. Beautiful poems from Barbara, and many, many more. I think just echoing what we're all feeling, which it's a worthy award-winning collection, and we can't wait to hear some more. So as Susan alluded to, we're going to take a very short interval, no more than 5 minutes, because we are running a little bit behind and we want to get everybody in before we have to put another 50p in the meter. So if we can just go refresh the glasses, because it's a Friday night, time to enjoy yourselves, and we will be back at 5 to 8. Thank you very much, everybody.